सो हाय गाइस, आज हमारा टॉपिक है स्केलेबिलिटी। दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक व्हेन इट कम्स टू सिस्टम डिजाइन एंड बिजनेस ग्रोथ. सो whenever the business growth is aligned, the topic automatically became most important topic of any series. बिकॉज जब भी कोई सिस्टम ग्रो होता है, उसके यूज़र इंक्रीज होते हैं, ट्रैफिक बढ़ता है, स्पाइक्स आते हैं, तो उस टाइम पे स्केलेबिलिटी एक बहुत ही क्रिटिकल टॉपिक बन जाता है. आज हमारे टॉपिक का यही एजेंडा है कि हम व्हाट इज स्केलेबिलिटी, व्हाई स्केलेबिलिटी इज नीडेड इन सिस्टम डिज़ाइन, टाइप्स ऑफ स्केलेबिलिटी क्या क्या हैं, कोड मैट्रिक्स क्या हैं जिससे हम इसको मेजर करते हैं, आर्किटेक्चरल पैटर्न क्या क्या यूज़ करते हैं हम उसमें, हम सब इसके थ्रू जाने वाले हैं. क्या की चैलेंजेस होते हैं, कितने टाइप की स्केलेबिलिटीज़ होती हैं, हाउ वी डिसाइड and how to which one to use when. So we will be focusing on these topics today. So let's start. Okay, so what is scalability? First we will go through it. So scalability is ability of system to handle the increasing load without unacceptable drop in performance, reliability or user experience by adding resources and improving design and not constant rebuilding. So basically what it means, scalability का मतलब ये होता है when हमारे सिस्टम पे लोड ज़्यादा आता है, जब हमारे पास ट्रैफिक ज़्यादा है, लोड ज़्यादा है, जब एकदम से ट्रैफिक बढ़ता है, तो बिना किसी परफॉर्मेंस गैप के, बिना किसी यूज़र एक्सपीरियंस को बिगाड़े, बिना डाउन टाइम के हमारा ऐप जैसे चल रहा था उसी कंसिस्टेंसी के साथ चलता रहे, ये होती है स्केलेबिलिटी. अब बहुत से लोग इसको परफॉर्मेंस से कंफ्यूज भी करते हैं. दे आर overlapping each other, but they are not same. So difference between performance and scalability can be understood by the level at which it is calculated. So performance means under a given load, how the system performs. Let's say your system matrix you designed for 100 user. So under 100 user, how it performs, that is called performance. Performance is basically implemented on your implementation level. When I say implementation level, what does I mean is, आपने कैसे ऑप्टिमाइजेशन किया है आपके कोड का, आपने कैशिंग यूज़ करी, आपने शार्डिंग यूज़ करी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के टाइम पे, आपने कैसे आपके डेटाबेस की नेटवर्क लेटेंसी को कम करा है, आपने एपीआई कम्युनिकेशन में नेटवर्क लेटेंसी कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करी हुई है, आपने कौन कौन से एल्गोरिथम्स यूज़ करे हैं, ऑप्टिमाइज कैसे किया है कोड को. सो परफॉर्मेंस की जब हम बात करते हैं तब ये सब टच पॉइंट्स हमें ध्यान रखने होते हैं. बेसिकली इट्स ऑन मोर ऑन द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन साइड ऑफ योर कोड एंड एप्लीकेशन. While scalability, so when we talk about scalability, it's more about at the architectural level. So when I say architectural level, what does that mean? Basically here means how we have designed our microservices, how we have deployed it, what servers, kind of servers we have used, what kind of load balancer configuration we have done, how horizontal scaling config has been given, auto scaling, CDNs, then user side cache and many other things like that, replications of the application. Things like these are included in this when we talk about scaling. Okay, so there is high possibility that a application is high performance but not scalable, or highly scalable but low performance. So what does that mean? This is one of the major criteria which many people ignore. So let's say you have built a very good application, very optimized, so it works for 10,000 user very easily, but suddenly when the traffic goes for 1 million users, you can see there is a gap in the performance. Suddenly the application becoming slow just due to the increase in the traffic. Okay, but vice versa, you have built the application which at any scale performs at same level, but its overall performance is low. So that is the basic difference between performance and scalability. So scalability simply means at the traffic also, at the high load also, your system still performs at the same level as on the your performance metrics at which you measure without much difference. Okay, I guess this is clear. So let's move on. Okay, so next topic is why system need scalability. So system need scalability when there is a user growth, traffic spike, data growth, business continuity is needed, cost efficiency. Now, as you know, as user base grows, like you say you were a startup, now your user base is growing slowly, then you need to have a system which can handle that many users. Let's say earlier your system was enough to handle 1,000 user, you have approximately 500 user. Now suddenly your business grows, you became popular, suddenly user spikes to 2,000. So you need to design your system, you need to design your deployment in a way that these user can be served by your application properly. Suddenly same way traffic spike works, same way data growth. Like when we say data grow, so what does data growth means? It means that, let's say along with user, their data also grows. Let's say earlier there were 1,000 users, now there are 2,000 users. The 2,000 users come with their own data, their own activities, which you stores for data analytics purpose. Let's say you are storing them for the purpose of authentication or for any other purpose, but the data grows, so you need to handle that efficiently too. Along with that, you need to provide 100% uptime to them, so that there is no, what we say, outages, downtime. So for that you need that. Also along with that, cost efficiently. Yeah, as you cannot blindly just give all resources to the services. Like let's say you say that let's buy the best system, let's buy all the servers, best servers possible. You cannot go in that way when you are talking about scalability. Why? Because it will become costly. Let's say you bought a highest config server while your user are just 500. It's just waste of money, so you need to control that. Instead of wasting that money, you need to design it, you need to analyze, you need to properly scale it in a way that right now it may serve 500, but if needed you can just scale it in a way that you need, rather than just doing it one time work. Okay, so now let's see the type of scalability we have. So there are two type of scalability. One is vertical scalability, another is horizontal scalability. Okay, so what the difference between them is, as you can see by this diagram. So vertical scalability say we can increase the size of machine, we can increase the machine type, we can improvise the current machine. While horizontal scaling says we will just add up the machine replicas, we will add more machine, we will distribute the load across the machines. This is what horizontal scaling says. So what are the advantages of vertical scaling? Simple implementation, fewer application changes, easier data consistency. And advantages of horizontal scaling is great long-term growth potential, better fault tolerance, easier global distribution. Okay, so let's understand this. So vertical scaling is when there is, you let's say your machine is taking a lot of load. आपकी like हमारी machine पूरे time, even on normal usage, the CPU is almost getting up to 95%, 96% usage. RAM is always full. There is a lot of garbage memory getting stored again and again. You need to clear it consistently. So at that time, you know that you need to scale the server. Why? Because even at your normal usage, it is getting blocked, your execution is getting slow. So that's the issue of your server. So at this time you need to improvise your optimization, you need to improvise your current server, you need to scale it vertically. Okay, so as you are just increasing the capacity of the server, you are just adding extra RAM, extra CPU power, storage. So here it's easy, as it is easier to implement. Like I am changing my laptop RAM from 16 GB to 32 GB, easier, easy to implement. We do not need to change anything here. Okay, while data also remains constant, as there is no change to machine, no change to code, no change to implementation. But there are limitations to it. Like let's say my machine is capped for 1 TB of RAM, just hypothetical situation, 1 TB of storage, and max I can go for 64 GB RAM. So this is the upper limit of my hardware. I cannot go beyond it. Then if my server goes down, let's say suddenly 1 million users strike, my server goes down, I am on a single server. Now what happens at this point? The application goes down. So this is a major downtime point in what we say. This is a major problem in this. Then downtime upgrades, as you push some changes, there is a downtime to it because everything is deployed on a single server. Okay, also as you grow your machine, as you scale your machine, the cost increase significantly. Like it's very easy to have two cheaper machine than having a expensive machine. Okay, because if you think going from 6 GB to 12 GB it will be just 2x cost, then it's not, it will grow 4 times. While having two 6 GB machine, it's cheaper. Okay, then what are the advantages of horizontal scaling? Great long-term growth potential. Why? Because here you are not bounded with the machine capacity. You can grow horizontally, you can make as many as replicas you want, you have better fault tolerance. Let's say at a time when your one server goes down, as you have multiple replicas of that, as you have distributed the load, as your services are on distributed network. So what happens in this case? Even if your one server or one service is down, the load is handled by the other system, and the load balancer helps in this. Okay, easier global distribution. How? as you can distribute your load across the regions also in this case. Like one server is here in India, one in UK, one in Australia. So this way you can even distribute your load globally. But there are limitations to it. Like in vertical you do not need to implement anything, but here at network layer, at architectural layer, you need to add things like you need to configure your load balancer, you need to configure your application in that way that it handles that. The data consistency is harder as there is communication between the servers. Then you need service discovery, tracing, that becomes a huge effort. The deployment is harder in this case. So these are the type of scaling, vertical and horizontal. We can use them together. Let's say I am scaling my server vertically plus horizontally, so it's a diagonal scaling of the system. Okay, so let's move on to next topic. So now get to the head-to-head battle between vertical and horizontal scaling. So if we say that what is basic, so as we know, upgrade one machine and add more machine, distribute the load. So this is the basic difference between vertical and horizontal scaling. Okay, what is the complexity? Low few moving parts, high orchestration required. So if we talk about complexity of implementation or usage, so as you know, it's very easy to do vertical scaling as you are just using, yeah, you are just upgrading the hardware, so there is not much to do with it. It's easy to implement. While at horizontal scaling there is orchestration required, like you need to put effort in network layer, load balancer, implementation, architectural level, you need to think about many things, you need to compare many things there. So yes, this is a harder one to implement. If we talk about growth, then there is a growth in the hardware. Like there you can just move to a certain part, like your machine cannot grow infinitely, you need to stop. There is a limit to it. While there is no limit to horizontal scaling, you can add n number of machine you want, as it's virtual. You need to just, what we say, need to keep adding the machine, so you can do it infinitely and it can grow. There is no limit to it, there is no upper limit to it basically. Okay, talking about fault tolerance, so there is single point of failure. So there are 2 points to it. It's easier to debug that what exactly is failing, but it is not good for business. Why? Because there is a downtime whenever there is a failure. So there is always the chance that if the application goes down, then it will affect all your user across the globe. While in fault tolerance, there is high redundant node. So maybe there, if there is a failure, you may feel that it is very hard to debug, hard to find out the bottleneck. But in that case, you have multiple servers, so load eventually gets the distributed, and other user don't get affected. Even the user which are getting affected, they get diverted to other servers shortly. So yes, that's why it's high redundant. Data consistency, if I talk about, it's easy because everything is on a same machine. You are not scaling it, it's easier. While in horizontal scaling, harder, it's hard because you need to check across the distributed nodes to keep the data consistent. If we talk about cost pattern, then in early stage, as you grow from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, it's like easy. But when you grow for 64, 1 TB, 2 TB, it's very hard to. While in horizontal, more parts, better long-term economics. Why? Because smaller machines are placed according to the load you need. May anyone need a top tier 100 machine, but that's a different case. But for most of the case, you need a smaller machine where the load is distributed among 100 of smaller machines. Okay, best for early stage apps, the vertical scaling where the users are not very much. Your one system can handle that much load. But horizontal scaling is needed when you get a global product, you have microservices, you are on cloud native platform, the traffic is very high. At that time you need horizontal scaling. Okay, so now let's move to the core metrics for measuring the scalability, like how we measure the scale, how we improve our system, at what basis we decide, what is the decision making metrics, basically, how we make the decision about that whether our app is performing is good at the scale or not. So first is the throughput. So basically what throughput is how many requests or transaction our system is completing in the given time frame. Let's say my system is processing 60,000 requests per minute. Like says per minute means 60 seconds. In 60 seconds, it is processing 60,000 uh, or transaction. This means that its throughput will be 6,000 requests per second. So this is how we calculate the throughput of the system. Okay, and this is the one of the major point that how we scale the how we measure it. Now next point is latency. So for that I will explain you with example. Latency basically means how long a user wait for the response from the system. Let's say user sends the request at 10 and he gets response exactly after 200 millisecond. So this 200 is the latency. 200 millisecond latency is there. So latency is not calculated by average by averaging the total latency of for the request. Let's say you are calculating latency, then you let's say tested it for 1000 requests. At 1000 requests, you sees that yet 99% of the request is getting served with 200 millisecond of latency. Then you will say there is 99% times or 200 times or 200 millisecond of latency. So industry standards say 95 p, p95, p98, p99. So this matrix is considered for calculating the latency. Then we then see error rate, like how many requests fails per transaction on increasing load. Let's say on increased load you get 10,000 requests per second, out of which two fails. So what does the error rate become? So we can calculate it like that and into 100 to take out the percentage of it. Okay. So let's say we calculated. So it becomes 0.02. So this is the error rate for us. It's very less. Well, okay, then how we'll calculate the resource utilization? So basically, we see how our CPU, how much RAM is empty. Basically, when a system is consuming less than 15% of your CPU and less than, let's say, 20% of RAM, it is says underutilized. And when system is using more than 70% of your CPU and more than 50% of your RAM, it is considered overutilized. So this is underutilized, this is overutilized. So we see that, let's say you have scaled your application but it is not getting utilized, then your money is getting waste. And let's say on normal usage also there is this condition that there is overutilization, then a scale your application will suddenly fail. So we don't need both of these conditions. So this is how this is what we say, this is measured. Then availability of the system. So basically availability means what is the uptime. Let's say your app was up for 30 days. Out of 30 days your there was downtime for 30 minutes. Okay, then you can say that there is a total uptime of 43170 minute and downtime of, you can say, what does it say, 43200 minute. And how we calculated it? We calculated total uptime versus downtime into 100. So this is how we calculated it. Okay, this is the availability formula, uptime versus downtime into 100. Okay, then what is cost per transaction and why do we calculate it? So cost per transaction is calculated by let's say how much cost you spend to serve one request. Let's say your total billing was, you gave 90 lakh rupees, 9 lakh rupees, sorry, not 90 lakh, 9 lakh rupees to, and your monthly request or monthly, so this is your monthly bill, 9 lakh rupees, and total number of requests you served in this month, let's say it to be 20 lakh. So when we calculate this, the answer will be something like 0. So this will be your cost per transaction. So this is important because this is how we know that how much our scaling is costing us. From this, we came to know that how our model is going on, whether we are in profit, or this infra which we have set up is taking us towards the loss, or the revenue is according to what we were expecting or not. And this is how we can calculate our revenue. So this is how the core matrices was: throughput, latency, error rate, resource utilization, availability, cost per transaction, and how they are calculated. Okay, so we can now next move to our next topic. So now we have discussed that how we measure scaling and how what is scaling, why it is important. So let's discuss how we implement scaling. What are the patterns we use for scaling when we say that we need to scale our application? So what exactly we follow, how we design it? So first point on that is stateless design. So what stateless design means when it comes to system design? So stateless service means that server does not contain any user specific information session on the local memory. So first we will understand what will be the problem is we do not implement stateless design. So if we will not implement stateless design, then let's say your server user logs in with the help of server A. Now for some for some reason your request goes to server B for getting served for, let's say, your service deployed on server B. So as the session was stored locally, the session was maintained there. So as soon as your request moves to the next server, it does not get authenticated and user logs out. So there is a problem in this flow. Okay, so with help of stateless, we implement Redis, we implement object-based storage, then we have JWT token, DB, so that any server can help and handle any request basically. So why it is important? Because stateless service are easy to use. It easy to scale in a horizontal way. We can implement auto scaling there. We can implement load balancing. The recovery from failure is easy, and as there is no physical storage of the session, so it's easy. For example, the REST APIs we design in this modern design pattern, it's usually stateless. Okay, then what we use here, like we say, is JWT, Redis, Kubernetes also help in horizontal scaling, as we do not, if we do not keep the session in the local memory, if we use the stateless design. Okay, so then comes the load balancing. So what load balancing does is, load balancing means basically we use a load balancer which distribute the load across the machine as per the load on each machine. Basically it is the master controller for all the servers you have deployed, which decides that which request to be served by which server. Okay, so if we do not have load balancer and have many server deployed, then there is a problem that, let's say, here here are your services, 3 services. Okay, 1 2 3. Now you hard coded it in somewhat manner. Now let's say here load is coming. Now let's say here 80% of requests are getting automatically redirected to here, 20% here, and your this server is always empty. And let's say you do not have load balancer, though there are chances that this get overpopulated, this crashes, then whole load gets diverted here, this also crashes, and load then comes to here, and due to extra load this also get crashed. Okay, so what was the problem? While this was idle, but because there was no load balancer there, though your service got auto scaled, but the server didn't get the load didn't get diverted towards the third service basically. So what problem we are facing? We are not able to divert the load toward the multiple servers which we have deployed. It is hard coded and the load is getting diverted toward one single server, which is the cause of failure. While if we put a load balancer here, let's say we put a load balancer here, load balancer. Now request come to it, it sees that this is getting overloaded, it will cut down its load to, let's say, 60%. Slowly it will divert the rest 20% here, and slowly it will make it, say, 30, let's say 35. So like that the load will get distributed. So the traffic is now even. Okay. So this is the benefit of load balancer. That's why we use load balancer. Okay, I guess this is clear. Now, technologies we use in load balancer is like we have Nginx, HA proxy, AWS, ELB. There are many others. Okay. So let's say now let's move on to next, caching. So what caching usually do, it basically we store the most frequently used data in the local session, or we can say in a temporary database which is on the server. What it helps, let's say we know that there are million of user trying to log in your single application. Now what happens here? So what happens, you need to redirect those 1 million requests again and again to your DB. So this will slow down your system. Okay, so what you will do here is you will just store the user metadata in Redis cache, or let's say any other cache. So now what happens, this 1 million request will not directly goes here, it will goes to cache where the data is already stored. So you do not need to again and again hit the query for one specific user. You have all your data here and it will serve this 1 million requests. So this will automatically make your request, your your return time, your throughput and latency, it will reduce with help of caching. Okay, so what it will do, first it will reduce queries and DB load, and it will reduce the response time. Okay, so this is the benefit of caching. Now DB replications, what does it means? It means you just replicated 1 DB. Let's say there are you have a use case where millions of posts you have a blog site or something like that, you have millions of requests coming just for read and very less requests for write or something like that. So what you can do is instead of one single DB for read and write, as you need to handle read requests efficiently, you can just make 1 DB replication at 2 times. So what will happen here, you will redirect all read requests to one server and one write request to one server. So here one overhead comes to you in implementation, that you need to maintain data consistency for these type of requests, that whatever gets the write here, it efficiently gets to this copy also, gets written to this copy also. This is the only limitations here, that there is a replication. So this is how it helps, as it reduces the millions of read activity and your there were few write activity and many read activity. So it helps you handle these type of requests. Okay, then there is sharding. So sharding, what does sharding mean? It means split data across multiple databases. Let's say having one database which stores your all user which are globally present. Okay, so whosoever login, let's say someone 1000 user logs from India, then 1000 user logs in from Australia, 10,000 from UK, and your server is in USA. So there is network latency and different user experience for all these users. So what does data sharding means? Split the data. Now there are many there are many types of sharding on many bases. This is just an example. So here what you can do here is, instead of having one storage at USA, you can have a separate DB for separate user in their own servers. This with UK, India here, and here Australian server. So what will happen now, there will be less network latency and each user will get served from this own DB. So there will be less network latency, less load, there will be better scaling, and also the size of this DB, like having 1 million users in a single DB, and having 10,000 users on different DBs across multiple regions. So this can help reducing the DB size also. Okay. So this helps in distributing load, support massive scale. It also reduces the bottleneck to one single database. Your joins and transaction becomes little bit complex, but it's okay as you are scaling here. Okay. Then let's move on to async queue. So what async queue means? Heavy work to background processing. Okay. So what does it means? Let's say there are a lot of requests coming. Let's say 1000 requests come, and your server can what we say, 1000 requests come. Your process can handle only, let's say, 300 requests at a time. Your applications can serve. So what happens when you makes a async queue? What it does, it 300 requests goes at a time while other requests wait in the queue. So when it sends 300 requests for the processing, it doesn't wait for you for completing this request. Okay, it just send the other 300 while keeping other in queue. So how it helps you basically? So let's say if this was 300 and you don't have queue here, you do not implemented queue here, so now user need to wait. Let's say you have multiple operations. Let's say you have a email operation, you have one generation, and you have one processing. These three functionality you have. Now your user triggers the email service. Now if your servers are not able to handle this request right now, so what will happen? User need to wait for this. There will be a buffering time here. But if you have a async queue, you can say this is given for processing, you can continue, this will get processed in some time. While user is generating his work, while he is working on the generation process, the email gets through the email queue, and he can while do this process efficiently. While this goes into queue, he can do this process. While this complete, he will send this. So this increase the overall user experience. So technologies we use here is Kafka, RabbitMQ, SQS. So what is that is basically smooths the traffic spikes, better responsiveness, decoupled service. So these are the benefit of them. Okay, so basically what happens here one service doesn't wait for other service. If three requests came at once, async queue what it does, whatever server is available, whatever service can be completed, it completes it first rather than waiting for first one to complete. So this is the basic of simple definition of async queue. Then it comes microservices. So as everyone might know, microservices just mean split one big app into multiple services, multiple independent services. So I have already discussed this in a very detailed manner in our previous video, monolithic versus microservices. You can refer that. So basically this means instead of having one major server, one major application all at once, auth, cart, invoice, delivery, auth is already happened, payment. Instead of having these all in one, we will split the each service independently and deploy them independently. So you can refer to previous video for more detail in this. Then we have CDN. So what does CDN means? The full form of CDN is content delivery network. So what it does, it says that when your application is up for global users, instead of having one single origin or one single target machine, you split it across the regions. Instead of having all origin at one server, you split it across it. So without it, what happens? Only one origin server gets hit. There is a latency issue as there is only one server to handle all the load. What CDN does? it distribute the load across the different regions. Okay, so what it does, it makes different images for different, so it reduce the latency, load, it also deliver faster network. The technologies we have to implement this is Cloudflare, Akamai, CloudFront, and all. So these are some technologies we use. So all these work together to solve the problem of scaling, like how it okay. So as we have gone through all our technologies and all our patterns we use to do scaling, now let's see the challenges and what exactly which technologies, which type of pattern we use to solve which type of exact problem. So when there is a traffic spike, so what goes wrong here is sudden burst, overload on server. Suddenly the what we say utilization of our the system become very heavy. Then we do load balancer, auto scaling, Kubernetes, SDN, CDN. So what it does, it distribute the load across the servers rather than having all load to one machine. Okay, so it maintains the performance by maintaining what we say optimal load on a server rather than overflooding one server. Okay, then database bottleneck, read write exceed capacity of single node. So here we can use read replica, sharding, indexing, cache layer, so that all read requests or write requests do not hit DB again and again. There is not much network delay, there is not overload of query to one DB. So we can use these sharding and replica caching there. Okay, based on the use case. Then session stickiness, request fails when session lives on one server. Like we use stateless design, so that let's say you logged in, your login services on a server with some other services. Now you move on to next server where your other services are there. Then as session is maintained on the machine itself, what happens when you move to next server, you need to either re-authenticate yourself or your user get log out and whole service get like the progress gets deleted from there. Okay, so you can maintain the session in Redis, JWT, or stateless design is the solution. High latency globally. So distance user experience, low content delivery. So as we said that we should have multiple regions, we should have multiple servers across the region. So for that we can use CDN, multi-region, GeoDNS, edge caching. For single point failure, one server crashes, take whole service down. So we can do horizontal scaling, redundancy, multi-AZ failure over. So slow work, background work, expensive tasks, block user risk. So basically what happens, let's say, as I said, your one server is being flooded or is serving one request and your queue have other. So what we will do, we will not move for this particular work to be completed. We will move the next request to another server and complete them first while this is getting completed. So here we will use serverless work pools, Kafka, RabbitMQ, basically async queues. Then we have monolithic limits. Why you should, so here we should use microservices, container, Kubernetes, observability get, team can't find the bottleneck. So Prometheus, Grafana, Datalog, OpenTelemetry. So basically these are some tools to what we say monitor our services through which we can calculate the bottleneck where our app is getting descaled. Coordination and consistency. Distributed node disagrees about current data. So idempotent API, Saga pattern, message queues can be used here. Okay, so as we have discussed everything about scalability till now, so let's see how to scale. Like what are the points we need to consider, how scaling goes, how we take decision. Basically how we decide that what to scale, how to scale, what technique exactly we need to do. So for that we need to like what approach we practically need to take to resolve something. So here like we need to measure under load, fix obvious efficiency, add caching, scale vertically, scale horizontally, rework data layer. So these are some points on which we decide exactly what to do. So what basically happens, decision should not be taken in a way like traffic increase, now we need to scale, we will increase the load, we will increase the our servers, we will increase more servers, we will increase the CPU. This is not how we do it. So what these point basically saying are, we need to identify exact bottleneck first. Okay, because this there you need to see the scope first. Like if there is a scope of implementation layer that you can what we say, let's say at implementation layer only you can handle the problem due to which you are facing the problem of slowness, like your application is getting crashed, your application is not responding in a fast way, and that can be improved via implementation layer, not via scaling or not via spending on server. Then it's better you identify it, identify the bottleneck and work on that layer, like work on implementation layer. Or if you need to also which exact type of load balancing, what exactly you need to do, whether you need to shard the data, whether you need to add caching layer, whether you need to introduce a load balancer or you need a CDN. So what exactly you need to identify that. So before scaling we need to exactly identify the bottleneck. So how we can do, we can monitor the CPU, we can monitor the memory, we can monitor the query, how much time it is taking, what is the effect of it on DB, what is the latency due to it, we can calculate the throughputs, then error rate and the other points we just discussed about, that how we calculate the matters. We need to find out that things with help of many observability tools. Then once we find the bottleneck, we can decide whether what is the need, what we need to do. Like let's say there is a CPU bottleneck, your CPU is getting what we say, your CPU is getting utilized 95% when there is normal load. So when there is normal load and your CPU is getting 95% of spike, this means your current service not getting enough power, or your current service is not enough powerful. So now here are two possibilities: either you need to vertical horizontally or vertically, whichever is possible for you, but also you need to see what exactly, at what stage basically it is getting spiked. Like let's say on a heavy processing request it's get that much of load. Okay, so you need to scale in that way because this is a heavy computational activity which need that type of server. Okay, then there is memory bottleneck you can face, like your GC is pausing, your memory is getting crash, OM is getting cache. So here you can increase your RAM, you can optimize the memory. Okay, you can externalize cache. Then let's say you see that there is a database bottleneck, then what you can, first you have to identify whether it from implementation layer, like there can be n+1 problem, there can be bad queries you are firing, or your database is not enough, your DB is consuming more of your CPU. Okay, so what you can do here, you have to first optimize your query itself, you need to optimize your indexes, you need to optimize your implementation layer, then you can scale it using sharding, vertical DB, caching and other things. Okay, now let's say there is a traffic spike bottleneck, then obviously as it is due to traffic spike, you need to scale first, you need to apply load balancer. Let's say you have a network level bottleneck, here also you need to apply scaling by via CDN, edge caching and other techniques we discussed. Then let's say you have a background job bottleneck, like async queue is not getting properly executed, then you need to implement the queue logic. If that is perfect, then you can scale with help of worker node, async consumer queue. So these are some methods which we can use, because industry rules says optimize first if possible, then scale. Why? Because scaling comes at the cost, at a constant cost for each request, while optimization is a job which you should do. Because let's say you have a bad query, bad implementation, though you are caching unnecessary thing, your JVM is overflooding with garbage value. So even if you scale, you need to scale it again and again, you need to waste your resources. Why? Because your implementation is not perfect, because it will again accumulate the garbage, it will again accumulate the load to your servers. Okay, it will automatically accumulate these type of thing. You will again face the problem is your implementation is not perfect. So you should give the first priority towards the optimization rather than scaling. Then if that optimization also doesn't serve your needs, then you should go for scaling, and by help of these points that we have discussed, that adding cache, having CDNs, then according to the bottleneck, exactly what bottleneck you have, either it is database bottleneck, CPU bottleneck, network bottleneck, you get decided accordingly. So I hope this is clear. Let's move on to next topic. What are the common scaling mistake? Scaling app, ignoring DB. So let's say you are scaling your application, but your DB is on a same server. You have not scaled it. While you forget that each increasing traffic or increasing user database says that your database is also getting increased, it is also getting hit many a time, so you need to increase that also. Why? Because the source of truth for your application is your DB, so it should also scale with your application. State in local memory, why stateless service. Then microservices too early. Like if you are a small team, you should not move to microservices. We have discussed this in our previous monitor. No monitoring, because without monitoring you cannot exactly identify the bottlenecks which where you exactly need to scale. Then assuming more server equal to fixed, as we discussed. That is why just scaling or just doing that CPU, you let's say vertical or horizontal scaling doesn't make your code efficient. If your code is not efficient, you will face problem later on. You will consistently need the scaling, and you will fall into a trap of your loss. Like you will be just flooding your money toward the resources but not actually solving the problem if you do not fix that things. No deployment strategy, like you have no rollback plan, you have no proper deployment, that if your one server fails, what is the backup, and that also that can also affect your scaling. So yes, so if we simplify it, so scalability is not equal to performance, they both are two different things. We always do vertical scaling first. If that doesn't work, then we do horizontal. Plus before scaling we think of for the optimization. The DB is always the next bottleneck. With application layer, the mostly scaling problem comes with the database layer. Measure before you scale. Basically we need to exactly identify the bottleneck where we are facing the problem, so that we can scale accordingly. Also validate that once you scale, so before moving on with deployment, before, like, it should not be like that you have increased the CPU, you have increased your server size, and you are saying yes we have scaled. No, you should have a proper metrics to response. You should have proper, what we say, you should have proper records and testing done before saying that it can be scaled. You should have that kind of records with you. You need to test it, you need to be with the proofs, you need to be confident enough. Yes, if the traffic increase, you have that much of power, you have optimized it in a way that it will handle that user with almost zero downtime. Okay, I guess we are done with the video. Please like, comment and subscribe.